We all love flavorful food, but I think that for most home cooks, when we think about building flavors, we're typically thinking about salt. And if you're even a little bit more advanced, you might be adding in aromatics like herbs, thyme, or fresh cracked pepper and garlic. But I think that there's one area that as home cooks we underutilize, and that's acidity. So think of this video as your introduction to acid. And by the end of this video, you're going to be so much more familiar with the role that acidity plays in cooking and bringing out flavors and adding a pop to dishes for that mouth-watering flavor. And you'll be more comfortable thinking about maybe adding an acid instead of reaching for more salt or seasoning when it feels like something is missing from a dish. We're making a creamy garlic and mushroom pasta from the Ambitious Kitchen cookbook for dinner, and it's full of strong, bold flavors like mushrooms and garlic and freshly grated cheese, and all of that is delicious on its own. But when we're thinking about elevating a dish, this author came up with a lemon ricotta topping, which just took this to the next level. It brought out the flavor and added a layer of brightness that can cut through the richness of a dish. With cooking, it's one thing to follow a recipe, but letting you guys know the why behind the choices we make is what I'm all about. I want you to be a confident cook that can apply these lessons in so many ways. So, if you've ever made a dish and you know you added enough seasoning and herbs, but something still feels like it's missing, this video is for you. If you cook at all at home in any capacity, this video is for you. If you want to find out how this tasted, stick around, but first, a lesson in acid. Hi, I'm Awosa, food lover and ambitious home cook. One thing that I'm always trying to do is get more bang for my buck with my food and the groceries that I buy. And one of the ways that I do that is through incorporating acid. So acid in food refers to those ingredients that add a brightness, a pop, a tang. They add balance to a dish, and they can do a lot for the dish. They can play a role for texture, they can play a role for color. But today we're focusing on it as a flavor component, especially and specifically as a finisher or as a seasoning. Acids cut through richness, it cuts through sweetness, it adds balance, it adds pop. It really does a lot. And I think it's really, really important to think about it because I know when I first started out with my cooking journey, I was using every single seasoning that I could find. And I knew that my food was constantly over seasoned, but that was just one of the ways that I was comfortable adding flavor. Where I'm at now, if I know that I want to lean into the flavors of something, but I don't want to add more fat, I don't want to add more salt, I'm so comfortable thinking about what acid can I add to a dish. So think of this video as your introduction to acid. There's a lot that we can say about this topic, but again, we're going to focus on the flavor component. You can use it in baking, you can use it in a lot of stuff, but again, the flavor component, focus also. Okay, so we have a couple of different types. First, you have your citruses, which I've been holding. You have your lemons, your limes. I always make sure to keep a couple of lemons at home, even if I don't have a specific dish in mind. I know that some way, somehow it's gonna come in handy. So fresh citrus is great to have. I'm sure different cultures and different people have different ones that they lean into, like limes and stuff. For me, lemons on hand, a great idea. Next, you have your vinegars, red wine, white wine, balsamic. There are so many different types. I have got a couple. This is a white wine vinegar. This is a rice vinegar. I have an aged balsamic. I think my sister bought me this either from Spain or Italy, so this one is really special to me. And I would actually add in hot sauce in this category as the vinegars because that's one of the main components on vinegars. And so if you're ever eating your whatever you like to add hot sauce to, whether it's your oysters or your fried chicken, and then you add that dab and it just feels like it goes perfectly, you're playing with acid. So these are things that we naturally know to do instinctually. We know what tastes good, but I don't think that we always put the pieces together like, oh, this is what's making it taste so good. This is what's giving it that mouth-watering sensation. So I would add hot sauce to the vinegars. You also have your dairy. In this category, you have your buttermilk, you have your yogurt, you have your sour cream. These add a creaminess and also that tang. I specifically love adding yogurt in when I'm looking for something to give maybe like a cooling sensation, or I'm looking for a texture component, but that still adds flavor. It's also a great carrier for flavor as well. And even though we're talking about acid as a flavor component, think about buttermilk or yogurt marinated chicken. In that case, the acid is acting as acid a protein breaking downer. I don't think that's the word. The acid is acting as a tenderizer for the proteins in that case. And it's a really great way to think about, again, all the ways that acid plays its way in our food and all the wonderful things that it does. One of the things that you should think about for this category is what flavor profile that you're going for. You can really get complex with the way that you cook. So I don't even want to say something like, oh, if it's a dessert, reach for your citrus, because you could also reach for a balsamic vinegar. There are so many ways to play around with acid that can make your food taste creative and can make your food fun. But let's make this a little bit more practical. When do you actually need acid? How can you know that you need acid? We're going to use a simple 3-step process or 3-step system to think about it. The first one is to identify the problem. What exactly is wrong with this dish that you're cooking? Do you feel that it's too rich? Do you feel that it's too sweet? Do you feel like it's just bland? That's a great place to start because those are all things that acid can help with. The next step would then to be thinking about what exact type of acid do you need to go with? What flavor profiles are you cooking with? Do you need citrus? Do you need vinegar? Do you need those dairy products that we talked about, like yogurt or sour cream? All of this will be dependent on the flavor profile that you're cooking with. If you're feeling a little bit, confused, I recommend good old friend Google. That'll be a great way to do that. And then the last step, the third step, is to balance it. After you've added your acid, you're thinking, okay, this tastes better, this tastes good. Is there anything else that it needs? Now you can balance it with some sugar, you can balance it with some salt, you can balance it with, more garnish just to get you somewhere. But acid in your food is such a great way to add brightness. And again, it comes in unexpected ways. And now you can use this at home when you're cooking to figure out what exactly you need to add. One example is how when you're at a restaurant, sometimes you're eating your salmon and it doesn't taste quite right, but then once you squeeze that lemon that they give you on the side, it feels like it's unlocked that flavor. So this is one of the ways that restaurant cooking is so good because I promise you they're definitely playing around with acid. But it doesn't always have to look just like a straight up squeeze of lemon on top of a dish. That's why I was really excited to try this dish today with the lemon ricotta on top. The lemon ricotta in this case is going to act as that brightness and flavor booster, but it's carried in a ricotta dressing type of thing. So that's a way to think about how people use acid differently and how people use acid creatively. Okay, so this is what we're looking like. This is the finished mushroom, garlic, and lemon ricotta pasta. I have tasted the pasta on its own after I stirred the cheese in, but I haven't tasted it with the lemon ricotta. It was very delicious, but very rich. So let's see what this tastes like. Get a little bit of the pasta. I'm actually not crazy about mushrooms, so I don't know if I want my first bite to be with like a big old thing of mushrooms. Okay, let's see. This is so good, and let's talk about it. That lemon ricotta topping is literally exactly what this dish needs. Mushrooms are a very earthy, meaty type of flavor, and this did call for a good amount of cheese in it. The Parmesan, I used Gouda because I didn't have mozzarella, but it turned out fine. And even the pasta too, very rich. So the addition of that really bright, creamy, lemony ricotta topping, it's just... She did her big one with this recipe. This I can see being something that I return to. This is really good. The addition of that lemony ricotta topping is exactly what we've been talking about with balancing flavors. I'm not gonna lie, I will be honest, I was not sure. I was not sure about this, but I could add this again. I'm really excited to see what else is inside this book. If you guys want me to cook any other dishes in this book and tell you guys the lessons and the reasons why they're making some of the decisions that they're making, let me know down below because I can definitely do that. It's so flavorful. The addition of that lemon ricotta topping just makes this dish would not be the same if the author hadn't thought about the foresight to add in that nice burst of brightness and acidity. So the recipe used the lemon juice, but it also used the rind of the lemon, which is another great way to add in brightness in the dish. So citruses kind of are really great because you have both the rind and both the juice on the inside, and both of them are great flavor builders. And she knew what she was doing because she had us use both inside the lemon ricotta topping that we had made and set aside for the pasta to be Done. Specifically, when we're thinking about acid as a flavor component, you want to add your acids in at the end of cooking because that will keep things bright and keep things fresh. In some cases, the acid is added in at the start. But for our purposes today, I want you guys to get thinking about acid as a finisher and how you can use it at home. One of the best places to me to add acid in is when you're cooking vegetables, green veggies, or different types of veggies in general. These benefit greatly from a burst of acid at the end. So there's a bunch of different ways to play with acid and a bunch of different roles that it can play. But I'm just giving you, we're gonna keep it simple today. Now, this is not to say that acid is the be all, the end all, the fix all. There are a couple of different mistakes that people can make. You can go ahead and add in too much acid and now your food tastes sour. That's not what you were looking for. So you need to be, careful about how you're adding it in. Again, as with all ingredients, you can add something in, but taking it out is really, it's not that easy. So taste as you go. If you do find that you've done something like that, try and see if maybe you can balance it with some sweetness and maybe adding a little bit of sugar or maybe some oil to cut through the acidity. And I know, I've talked about lemon a lot today, but that's just because that's the one that I reach for the most and the one that I keep on hand. But it's not always the flavor that you should be going for. So think about the flavor profile, and only relying on one type of acid might not be what you need. You can actually combine a couple of different types of acid if you really think about it and make it have complex and layered flavors, which again is just a great way to boost your seasoning and create complex flavors at home in your home kitchen. I want to know what your favorite type of acid in a dish is. I know that I've talked about lemons a lot, but something unexpected? Tomatoes. If you're Nigerian like me, we eat suya. It's something that's commonly served. It's very spicy, and they always serve it with some sliced onions or sliced tomatoes. Guess what those things are doing? They're on the side for balance. They're providing acidity. Tomatoes are actually an ingredient that people don't think about when they think acid, but it is a very, very acidic ingredient. When you think about fruit that add acidity, most people always think about lemons, but what if you needed to add some tomato in there? So play around with different types of acid and the different types of unique flavors that they have. Y'all know that I'm an advocate of eating out or just trying different things. There's no shortcut to becoming more familiar with different flavors and building that flavor bank. And then the last one that I've kind of touched on already is adding the acid in too early. If you're specifically looking for the acid to be a finisher or a seasoning, you don't want to add it in too early because that can kind of deteriorate some of the flavors that you should be building in that dish. And then at that point, it's kind of like, why did you even bother, A lot of acids, especially your citrus, if you're zesting it, benefit from being done at that moment when you're going to use it rather than as a step done earlier in the day to save time. You want to add it in at the point of the cooking almost being finished. Acid is the ultimate flavor booster, and again, something that I feel like home cooks just need to play around with a little bit more. See how it can fit into your kitchen and in your cooking, and where you can use this to add that boost of flavor or balance that you've been thinking that you needed. The next time that you feel like, I need to add more salt to this, think to yourself, can I add acid instead? If you enjoyed this video, you might enjoy this video next, because on this channel, we're giving all the tips and tricks to cooking in different ways. Acid is the ultimate flavor booster. By the time you guys get comfortable adding this into your cooking, you won't go back, I promise you. So good, so good.